Welcome back to yet another week of NFL Power Rankings. My name is Hunter, and today we're going to get into how the league is shaping up after the first two-thirds of the season are now over, and we only have 6 more weeks of NFL football before we get into NFL playoff football. So where you stand right now is obviously very important. But before we get into it, make sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and share with your friends if you really like these power rankings, and let's get into it. Last place, I got the New York Giants. They get blown out by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this week, and coming off their bye week, things are still the same. This team is just not playing well at all. They defensively had no answer for Baker Mayfield in that first half. Offensively, they did not do anything minus a garbage time touchdown. Tommy DeVito, I love the guy, but did not play great in this one. And now they're 2-9. This team is obviously tanking for the first overall pick because they want the best quarterback available. But if they're going to be somewhat solid down the stretch, they're going to need a lot more production from that offense. Get the ball to Malik Neighbors more, get Tyrone Tracy the ball more, and actually block for him are some of the keys for the Giants to maybe win games down the stretch, although I don't think they want to. I have the Vegas Raiders down at 31, and once again, just not good offensively for them this week. They played a close game with a good Broncos team, but it ultimately wasn't enough to get the win. Gardner Minshew is now out for the year with an injury, and they will turn to Aiden O'Connell, it seems like, next week against the Chiefs on Black Friday. And this is another team where I'm not sure if they're going to want to win games, but they're going to need more production from that offense because that offense has been really bad the entire season. And although before the season I would have said there wasn't much hope in Vegas, there's even less now. So I have them at 31. At number 30, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they were on bye this week, meaning that they didn't lose. That's good. That's good for them because obviously this season has not gone the way they wanted it to. They will probably be the top team in the draft that does not need a quarterback, so they will likely land Travis Hunter. But for the Jaguars to show, especially some of those players that their jobs might be on the line down the stretch, they're just going to need more continuation of just production because this team just hasn't produced in big moments. That's why they've lost a lot of close games. And coming out of their bye week over the last 6 weeks, let's see if Trevor Lawrence can show something to make that contract he got before the season seem like a somewhat decent contract. I have another team that was on bye this past week, the New York Jets at number 29. And there's a lot of questions about what the future of this team is going to be. They have fired their coach. They have fired their GM. It seems like Aaron Rodgers is going out the door. And all of a sudden, it seems like this team potentially is going to be in the mix for a quarterback. But down the stretch, let's see what Aaron Rodgers can do with this team. If they could start to get some wins, I would not be shocked if he was back in New York next season. If not, lots of change coming in New York, and it's already begun. So I have them at number 29. At number 28, I have the New England Patriots, and they lose by multiple possessions to the division rival Dolphins in a game where they just let Tua and that offense just do whatever the hell they wanted in this game. There was really no answer for them at all until late when it didn't really matter. And there's going to need to be more consistency. I know there's not that much on that offense for Drake May to get it to. That's why this team is also in the mix to get a guy like Travis Hunter, who would be huge for them, or sign a guy like T. Higgins in free agency. But this team is 3-9. If this current coaching regime wants to succeed, I would like to see them get a couple more wins here to show that this team, that Belichick was the problem last year, and it's easily fixable in New England if they just get the right pieces. So I have them at 28. At number 27, I have the Cleveland Browns, and they get back in the win column. This team knows how to win divisional games. That's what they've done in 2 of their 3 wins this year. They beat the Steelers this time, and it was a fun game to watch. Obviously, the snow in Cleveland made it a great game, but at the same time, you had great performances out of guys like Jameis Winston, who clutched up late. on some late drives to get them the win. You had Nick Chubb get a couple touchdowns. He's beginning to look like himself again. This defense made key plays when it mattered. And the Browns just played a complete football game, something that they haven't really done at all this season. It was the most impressed I've been with this Cleveland team, although they're 3-8 and their season is over. You just like to see this out of a team that you know has the potential to do more. So that's why I have the Cleveland Browns at 27. At 26, I have another team that picked up a divisional upset this week in the Tennessee Titans. And Will Levis played a solid game, minus a pick six that almost cost them the game late. But they were able to get it done when it mattered. This team scored 32 points this week, which is great. And against the Texans team that is one of the top teams in this league, it was just a great performance from offense to defense. You had Westbrook Akine, who seems like he's going to be the deep threat for that team. He's caught 6 out of 7 touchdowns in the last 6 out of 7 games. And yeah, the Titans, once again, another team that's out of it, but just played a complete football game this week. The Chicago Bears are a team that Hail Mary loss to the Washington Commanders has really thrown their season to the ground. They were 4-2 then, now they're 4-7. They've lost 5 in a row. This week, another heartbreaker. They get 10 points in the final minute, but it does not matter because they lose in overtime when their offense kind of stalled out. But the best game of Caleb Williams' career was against the Vikings this past week, and you'd love to see that if you're a Bears fan, although the results are not what you want. The defense just needs to be more consistent. They kind of let Sam Darnold go off in certain points of the game and then shut him down in certain points of the game. And a great defense is a consistent defense. But Bears, not looking great, 4-7, a loss or two away from their season being over. This is the highest that the Panthers have been the entire season on my power rankings. I have them at 24 this week, and it's because they played a great game against the Chiefs. They just fall short in the end, but Bryce Young is having the best stretch of his career, and it's nice to see because this is a guy that he got benched only 20 or so games into his career as the first overall pick, and he's come back, and now he's playing like a legit starting quarterback in the league. Chuba Hubbard continues to be that great running back for the Panthers, and defensively, they continue to make stops, but once this defense and this offensive line get a bit better, Carolina is going to slowly rise to being a contender once again, but they're still a bit away from that, so that's why I have them at 24. Another team that got a divisional win against a heavily favored opponent, the Cowboys, behind Cooper Rush at quarterback, get a win, and it was special teams in this one. Kevontae Turpin's big return at the end was the key to winning, and it's just that the offense had its best game without Dak Prescott this week. It seemed like they were actually moving up and down the field, and they just played a great game. Concerns defensively. It's been, for most of the season, their defense has been pretty shaky. And if this Cowboys team wants to get back into contention this season by stringing together a bunch of wins, it's going to be how this defense plays. So for Dallas, it's not all over yet, but as I said with the Bears, a 4-7 team is only 1 or 2 losses away from their season being over. New Orleans was on bye this past week, but I'm going to reiterate what I said about them last week. They're getting much better play since they fired Dennis Allen, and Darren Rizzi is a potential candidate for that job if the Saints win a couple more games down the stretch, but they have key games coming up, and the Saints are going to have to win pretty much all of them. They're 1 or 2 losses away because they're a 4-7 team, and Saints just need to get that play they've gotten the last 2 weeks for the rest of the year. The Bengals were also on bye this past week, and this is a team that did not expect to be 4-7 at this point. Obviously expected to have more wins than they do right now, and they're getting the best season out of Burrow, the best season out of Chase, the best season out of Trey Hendrickson, and it does not matter. For the Bengals to make the playoffs, they're going to have to win pretty much every game or only drop one, and they do have a key game against the Broncos later in the season, but Bengals need to start winning games that they should, which is what they've struggled to do over the first half of the season. I have the Colts at number 20. This week, they can't score a touchdown against the Lions. And yeah, that's the concern. They have games where offensively they have looked tragic. It doesn't matter if it's Anthony Richardson or Joe Flacco at quarterback. They just need more production out of their offense in general. Their defense is putting them in positions to win games, and the offense is just not taking that opportunity to do so. And for the Colts, who are 5-7, they likely need to win out to make the postseason. And I don't know if this Colts team will get offensive consistency to do so. So I have them at number 20. The Los Angeles Rams are moving down 2 spots to number 19. And this week, they just got ran all over by Saquon Barkley. That was ultimately the difference, as Barkley had 255 yards against a Rams run defense that just hasn't been the same since Aaron Donald retired. Offensively, they got a solid game from their offense in general, but it's not going to be enough if you allow 37 points. So defense needs to work a lot harder on stopping the run and stopping the big plays. And the good news for the Rams is they're only a game back in the division in a really tight NFC West. And I've said this pretty much every week. Whoever wins the divisional games in that division will end up winning the division. So Rams not completely out of it yet at 5-6, but not looking great right now. The San Francisco 49ers suffer one of their biggest losses of the season. They get blown out by the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. And Brock Purdy didn't play, but Brandon Allen was throwing the ball pretty well. It's just that their offense never really got going besides George Kittle having a solid day. Christian McCaffrey had his worst game since coming back. And the defense just could not stop the run. And they couldn't make the stops that this Niners defense is known for doing across the past few years. And if you're a Niners fan, you should be very concerned about this team because right now they're 5-6, and to make the playoffs, they can only really afford 1 or 2 more losses. But it's in the NFC West. 9 wins should be good enough, and I think the Niners are good enough to do so. So, not waving the white flag on the season yet, but they are 1 or 2 losses away from doing so. Tampa Bay came back from their bye week and stopped that losing streak they were on before the bye week. They destroyed the New York Giants at MetLife this past week, and it was a great game all around. Defensively, they let nothing happen for that Giants offense, and offensively, Baker Mayfield had a great game. Bucky Irving had a great game, and it's that trio at running back that's going to help this Buccaneers team win. They get Mike Evans back, and that helped the team out a lot. And this Buccaneers team is talented enough to make the playoffs. It's just, can they? And they showed this past week that they definitely have the possibility to do so. So in the NFC, I would be watching Tampa Bay to possibly come back and make the postseason. The Miami Dolphins are on a roll, and that's why I moved them up 3-16. They're in the top half of the rankings again after they were only there for the first week or 2 of the season. And yeah, they're just getting complete quarterback play from Tua, who is proving to be one of the most valuable quarterbacks in the NFL, because the biggest problem for Miami was that their lack of a good quarterback. Once Tua comes back, they start succeeding. And now they're on a roll. They've won 3 in a row. They're 5-6. They're a game and a half out of a playoff spot. And with a win at Lambeau against the Packers on Thursday night, they're back to 500, which is something at 2-6 you wouldn't have expected. So Miami, they're one of the best teams in the NFL in recent weeks, and they're definitely a team to watch across the last 6 weeks of the season. Arizona, I was worried about them coming out of their bye week and just being ineffective, and they come out of their bye week and do so. They put up only 6 points against Seattle and lose a key division game 16-6. The offense just could not get going. The defense put them in the position to win the game, and the offense just did not do anything. The key thing that happened was a pick 6 for the Seahawks, and so they really only lost this game off of 1 turnover, and that's just because their offense didn't do enough. If Arizona wants to make the playoffs, they have to get that team of the last 4 to 5 weeks before this week to be the team that they put on the field every single week from here on out. So there's concern about the Cardinals, but they're 6-5. They're only a game out of the playoffs right now, and I'm not worried about them completely. At number 14, I have the Atlanta Falcons, and they were on bye this past week, so I've kept them at 14. But obviously, they went on a bit of a slide before their bye week. If you are a Falcons fan, you are hoping that they come out of this bye week reset, because it seemed like something was happening to this team. They got destroyed before their bye week by the Broncos, and obviously, for them, it's a division that's very winnable, and if you begin to lose games, you have Tampa, who has creeped back up into the race with their win this past week, so Atlanta's got to start winning games coming out of their bye. So I have them at 14 still. Seahawks are a team that I consider, like, you don't know what you're going to get. They're a very random team because they started the season off 3-0, then they lost 5 out of 6, and now they've won a couple of games here in a row to get back into the playoff race, but also take the lead in the NFC West. They've beaten the Niners and now the Cardinals in back-to-back weeks, the two biggest wins of their season, and it's 2 weeks where their defense has looked amazing. Their defense is really the key to winning in this NFL season, in this NFL period, and getting great play from the secondary, including that pick six that proved to be of the most importance for them this past week. And Seattle, if they can get a couple wins here down the stretch, they are going to make the playoffs. So right now, it's definitely looking up for Seattle, and I have them at 13. The Chargers fell short on Monday night to the Ravens in the Harbaugh Bowl, but I'm not really concerned about them because they played a good football game against a good team, and it kind of proved more that they are a competitor rather than disproving that they're a competitor because they played a great game against the Ravens, but defensively they just weren't able to make the key stops. And for the Chargers, they are 7-4 right now. It's looking pretty good for them, and if they can get 2 or 3 more wins, they will be in the playoffs. So if you're a Chargers fan, don't be down about that loss because I'm still pretty sure that they will get into the playoffs this season. Time to sound the alarm on the Houston Texans. I've moved them out of the top 10 to 11, and they play another week where they just don't look like the football team that we thought they would be. They had no answer for an offense led by Will Levis, so that should be a concern if you are the Houston Texans. Their offense is putting up enough points. It's just defensively, they just have not been playing well. And if you're thinking it's the offense because, they lost Stephon Diggs for the year and, Nico Collins has been hurt. No, the offense has been doing fine. It's defense that they need to improve on if this Texans team is going to do something in the playoffs because they're going to win the AFC South. But from here on out, it's concern about what are you going to do in the postseason because Houston was supposed to be a Super Bowl contender this season, and they just haven't looked like that for most of this year. So I have them at 11. At number 10, I have the Washington Commanders, and another tough loss. That's been the theme for them over the past few weeks because a couple weeks ago they had the chance to take the division lead against the Eagles, and they didn't, and now they lose this one to the Cowboys, and it was just because of key mistakes. On special teams, they let 2 touchdowns up late. They missed a bunch of kicks in this game, which would have given them the chance to win. And it's just about execution. Jaden Daniels also hasn't been playing like how he played in weeks past, and he's beginning to lose the offensive rookie of the year being crystal clear for him because there's another guy I'll get to in a second that is playing better than Jaden Daniels right now. But as for the Commanders, they're 7-5. Once again, this is another team that needs 2 or 3 more wins to get into the playoffs. And at this point, the way they're playing, I wonder if they can do so. That guy I was talking about was Bo Nix. Bo Nix has been playing amazing. The Broncos are now 7-5, and the Broncos are looking like a team that could potentially go and upset a team in the first round. Because if you get great play out of Bo Nix, like how he's been playing these past few weeks, throwing touchdowns, throwing for a bunch of yards, and also get great play out of their defense, the Broncos are a scary team. That's why I moved them inside of the top 10, because they have finally proved to me after I doubted for a little bit that their start was legit, that it is indeed legit. So for Denver, it's looking great. They have this week and then their bye week, and if they go into their bye week 8-5, this is a severely overperforming season for the Denver Broncos. So I have them at 9. The Steelers go from beating their division opponent, the Ravens, to take control in the AFC North, to losing to the Browns on Thursday night in that snow game, where their offense did not show up for the first half of this game, and they showed up a little too late, because once Cleveland got going, they were going, and once Pittsburgh got going, it was when Cleveland was going, and that's why Cleveland won the game. I'm not too concerned about the Steelers because they have this every single season. They lose to a team that they should beat on a Thursday night. Last year it was the Patriots. This year it's the Browns. And just if they continue to get good play out of Russell Wilson, this team is going to be okay. So I've kept them at number 8. Green Bay absolutely destroyed the 49ers at Lambeau on Sunday, where Josh Jacobs had 3 touchdowns, over 100 yards. And that signing is paying off. Their other signing, Xavier McKinney, that's paying off. He had another interception, and he is tied for the league lead at 7. And Jordan Love played his first interception-free game of the year, and they win by 28 points. That proves that if Jordan Love can play turnover-free, then this Packers team is a real threat to not just win a couple playoff games, but potentially win the NFC and go to the Super Bowl. It's just, if they get consistent play out of Jordan Love, this team will play more consistently, and that's what we'll figure out over these final 6 games of the season with this team. But I moved them up 1 to number 7. At number 6, I have the Minnesota Vikings, and this team is the most quiet 9-2 team you've ever seen. People are not talking about them for having one of the best records in the league, because they're quietly winning games. They had a couple of weeks where Darnold wasn't playing his best, but their defense saved the day. And this week, Darnold was at his best. He threw for over 300 yards. TJ Hawkinson got involved in overtime to make key catches en route to win. And the only concern with this Minnesota team is what happened at the end of the game. They were up by 10 inside the final minute, and they let the Bears storm back into the game. And the Vikings, if they want to succeed for the rest of the year and in the playoffs, they just cannot let that happen. So that's my really only concern with them. I've kept them at number 6, but great start for Minnesota. At number 5, I have the Baltimore Ravens, and they win on Monday night in LA against the Chargers, where Derrick Henry had yet another good game. And Justice Hill had a key run late, so their run game is obviously going, with the addition of Lamar Jackson being the best rushing quarterback in the NFL. The pass game got going in certain points, and the defense played a great second half after the first half did not go so well. As for this team, they really need to claw their way back in the AFC North if they want to have a better shot in the postseason, because home advantage is huge in the NFL, and playing mostly road games or playing a home game is going to make a key difference for them. So the key thing for the Ravens is get back in that division. Next time you play the Steelers, you have to beat them. And for Baltimore, it's looking pretty solid. 2 words: Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is likely the MVP leader right now. He's on pace to have the best rushing season of all time, and it makes sense right after he left the Giants. That whole thing is crazy. I talked about how the Giants were at 32, and the team that Saquon's on now is at number 4. The Eagles play another offensive masterpiece where they score 37 on the Rams, where it's not just Saquon that's getting it done. A.J. Brown's making key plays. Jalen Hurts is continuing to just be the guy in Philadelphia. And if you're an Eagles fan, I would think that this year is potentially the year, because the Eagles are just on a roll. They've won 7 straight, and right now I have them at number 4. Kansas City has another game where they looked a little shaky, but they get the win. That's been the theme of most of their season. They're 10-1, but many people think the other 10-1 team that's at number 1 on these rankings is playing a lot better than them. And it was because they let Bryce Young, a guy who never really has had that great game, have a great game against them. And they needed to get lucky late to win the game, And that's how Kansas City won. They drove down the field because Carolina left too much time for them. And if you're Kansas City, it's about getting that 1 seed because there's a good chance if this team doesn't get the 1 seed that they don't go back to the Super Bowl. So for the final 6 games of the season, it's about continuing to win because if you slip up once and the Bills don't, you're forced to play in the wild card round. Speaking of Buffalo, they're at number 2, and they were on bye this past week. But more of the same stuff I was saying with the Chiefs is the very key thing for them is getting that 1 seed. They have to hope that Kansas City slips up once and that they don't. They play the 49ers this week, a team that really isn't playing their best football right now, and another chance for Buffalo to get in the win column because they've been playing stellar the entire season. If Josh Allen continues to play like the way he's playing this season, Buffalo might not lose again. So Buffalo, much of the same stuff that I've been saying over the past few weeks, but if they continue to win, Buffalo is potentially en route to a Super Bowl this season. At number 1, the Detroit Lions are still here. They limit the Colts to getting no touchdowns, and they do just enough on offense. They win 24-6, and the Lions haven't allowed a touchdown in 2 games now. That shows how good their defense really is. And offensively, they've had multiple 40-plus point games this season, so you obviously know what the Lions offense could do. And it's pretty much consensus at this point that the Lions are the best team in the league this season. And if the Lions win out, it's potentially looking like this could be a team that goes 16-1 and wins the Super Bowl. But for Detroit, not much to say other than just keep playing the way that they're playing. And that's going to do it for this week. If you guys liked it, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and I will be dropping a prediction video for the last 6 weeks of the season, plus the playoffs, and that will be dropping either tomorrow or on Thanksgiving. So be on watch for that, and I'll see you guys in the next one.